Hey guys, time for another how-to video. This time it's going to be the heat exchanger upgrade. I purchased the Eurocharged heat exchanger, the larger Eurocharged heat exchanger, versus our stock one, which is on the ground there. And this is going to be how to step by step from removing the front bumper all the way to installing and getting the air bubbles out of your system. All the procedures will be here, so it'll be quite straightforward. There's a couple of options on the install, and that's going to depend on your skills and your abilities. You can simply screw in the two tabs that comes with the kit itself, or do as I did, is I grabbed some aluminum welding rods, and not rods, but pieces of aluminum, and I welded two new ears right on top of it. So it all depends on what your comfort level is. Either way, it's a straightforward, pretty simple step-by-step video, and hope this helps. So let's get on with the first step. The first tool you'll need is a Torx bit. Torx bit, this one here happens to be the T25, as you can see right there. You'll need the T25, and you also need the T30 for on top of the car there. This one here, we're going to remove two screws located underneath where the wheel well is, and a couple underneath the front of the panel clips. So if you've never seen what a Torx bit looks like a star. Get that in focus. Okay. There we go. That's what it looks like. So the first ones we're going to remove, we take a look in relationship with the side marker right here, which you need to remove anyway. So let's do that right now. If you have a couple of old credit cards, hotel cards, whatever you got, just come right in the back here and slap. Just see how easy that is. Okay. Just a slight pull. It's got a little clip, hold down clip, pressure clip right here. Okay, and see what happens when you do that. So when you press it from the back, from there, and you push it forwards, it puts pressure on the pin, which releases it from its clip. So let's do that again, but this time with a different tool. This next tool is the one I prefer, which is a nylon trim tool. Okay. These will come in very, very handy with any work that you'll be doing on your car, as to not scratch or mar any body panels or clips or anything else. So you saw that, just popped it right back there and removed it. So the reason we need to remove this is right up here, there's a bolt. Okay, we need to remove that one. So by doing this, we'll get this unit out of the way so that our screwdriver, not our screwdriver, but our wrench can go underneath here and remove it. So the first ones we need to remove are, again, from there, right there. There's your first screw. There's your second one beside the other. Again, these are T25s. Then we go down underneath the car, and right here, right there is the other one. And after that, we will continue on to the other side as well. And the other thing you need to remove is your bottom plastic shield. Those are held. Most cars should be a external or an external bolt at 10 millimeter. As you can see, I peeled back the plastic piece here underneath the wheel well. Just bent it a little bit, not enough to crack it or not enough to cause any damage, just very, very slightly moved it back, holding it with a piece of bungee cord. This exposes the area that we need to get into. As I mentioned, there's a 10 millimeter nut that's located right here, and you will need, the best thing to do is just get a small socket with a 3-inch adapter on it. Go underneath right here and just remove that single, there's only one, so just the one 10 millimeter nut. and it's located. It's a little hard to get, so my apologies if this doesn't get it right, but it's located right here. Okay, right there. Okay, next step is to remove the fog light access tab, and all you need to do here is just push this little clip and it'll pop off, and then just pull it back. How this works is, notice back here when you do come to put it back in, see a space in there that will fit between, or sorry, this piece here over there actually, but this plastic piece will fit in between this groove. So when it comes time to put back in, just shove it in between the grooves and close back your door. The fog light access, the fog light bulb itself is quite simple to do. Is you just locate it. Once you locate it, turn it counterclockwise. So that's what it looks like right there. So if ever you need access to it, to change it, very quick, very simple to do. Now that we've got those panels, what we'll do is we will go remove the other side on the passenger side. Repeat the exact same process of what we've done here, and after that what we'll do is we will go and remove the bottom plastic pan. All right, located back at the front of the car, we're going to go underneath, remove the plastic shield pan, and just underneath it, right at this point, the center line of your car. All right, come back here. There's one. To the right of that, about a foot, there's a second one. Go back to the center, about a foot back there, there's another one. And there's your three front bolts that you have to, screws that you have to remove. And in the back, there'll be two more. And they are located at the very back of the splash pan. So, you take a look, here's the passenger tire. So you come over here, and right where my finger is, there's one, and there's another one right located here. So there's the driver's side tire. I'm using this as a reference because you need to locate the bumper, front bumper. Here it is, just where my hand here. There's a nut right there. All right, and that's a 10 millimeter nut. We need to remove that one. It's located right beside. Take a look at the bracket for holding your radiator right there, and your AC cooling system right there. So come back on this side. Again, same location. There it is right there. So those two need to be removed. Once you've dismantled all the bolts, next one here will be to remove this guy. It's a T30. Get a good zoom. So remove this guy and remove this one as well. Once you have that, what you will do is come back here and make sure that you release. See that? Okay, there's the nut that was holding. There's a side marker. There's the bolt that was holding that 10 millimeter piece. Make sure that you release that one, and then on both sides, then you'll be able to pull the bumper off. So now it's time to remove the old heat exchanger. There's the old heat exchanger itself right there. If you're wondering what are these things and why don't I have them on my car, it's because these are just little LEDs that I installed about 4 years ago, and at this point water has infiltrated them. They're no more good. I'm going to remove these and replace with another set of LED lights in the front. The other thing you'll also note is my horns have been relocated. They were up on top. I've moved them down to the bottom area. Simple reason is it gives me more access to move to remove my air filters and to clean them on both sides. Now, for the unit itself. I highly suggest a pair of these guys here. What these guys are is they're hose pinchers. See, there you go. How these work is they're non-marring. They won't bite into your rubber hoses, and they'll bite into them without cutting them or leaving some gouges in it. So just close this one up. If you don't have a pair, I only have one because a friend borrowed my other one, so I made my own with a pair of needle nose pliers. Put two pieces of popsicle sticks or tongue depressors, and just to hide the grooves. And I'm going to do the same thing and just clamp the other one as well. Almost forgot to tell you, there's another one right down here. Another 10 ml. Just remove this guy as well. You're not going to lose a lot of fluids, by the way, if you pinch these guys off. It'll drip off a little bit simply because pressure is equalizing itself inside, and it's matching back down to the lower level. And anyways, once you get this, all you're going to do is transfer this into a clean bucket and transfer the fluids from here into the Eurocharge heat exchanger. Now, this is also a great time for you to do a flush. If you wanted to do a flush, just unhook these two hoses right here, let it drain out, open up your top container, and grab a hose and just do your typical flush system. But we're not doing that today. We're just going to be working on the heat exchanger. Keep it tilted so you don't lose your fluids. Put it to the side. Now you'll see what you have to work with. You'll have a lot of room for the new unit. So now that we have the old heat exchanger up on a bench, I'm going to show you what the issue is, or what the challenge is going to be for some of you. As a couple have mentioned, they would like to keep the scoop. Now, the scoop is obviously been specifically designed for this because it is molded around the component of the heat exchanger itself, and I'll show you here how to remove it in the first place. You got these little clips, and you just pry these off. So if you take a look, little tab clips, little hold down clips with very sharp grooves on each side that holds into that grabs onto the plastic as well as into the metal. And they're located one there, and one here as well. And you just lift these guys up. I'm missing one. And you can see here, it just does a little bit of a contour of the lip. Okay? So just pop that off. On the top part, let's put this sideways, and you'll see how it's specifically molded for this unit itself, as it fits right onto this groove, right into this groove. Okay, the Eurocharge one does not have that. It is also bigger and thicker, so you would have to, quite sure how you would do it, But you would have to either weld a small tab like this right on to the top. Doesn't have to be the full length, obviously. It could be just a portion, bottom portion. Because it won't just fit. You can't just keep it on. And it's not going to clamp on at the bottom as well because it's not the same size. So you would have to create a bracket that goes around. Example, bracket that would go around and clamp itself down to here. Let's have a look at the two units. This is the stock heat exchanger with the brackets that comes from manufacturing, and you'll see why you cannot reuse the same bracketry for the Eurocharge unit. So that tells you everything right there. Let's back up, back up, back up. So as you can see, the two units, quite a difference in sizes, quite a difference in thicknesses as well. The heat exchanger on this one will be going this way, because there's your inlet and outlet tubes, pipes right here, just like this one. So you can see right there, there's a good comparison. So now you can see the width difference, the height difference, and the length. This is why you have to do a little bit of fiddling on your car, and we'll show you that in a second of where you're going to be installing this. All we're going to do doing today will be to bend the ears right here so that they fit into the frame of the car. I'm going to drill a couple of holes in there and screw it right to the body itself. It will not move. It will be very solid. There is the other option, and that is to find yourself some more aluminum. I have some at home here in the shop, so I can use this, clean this up really well, remove the two ears and post them and weld them on sideways here. It will depend on your abilities and what you have as far as tools, but if you want a straight installation and you do not have the ability or capability of welding on aluminum, then I suggest is to bend the ears here, and we'll show you that right now. Time to bend the ears. I've bent this one as a dry fit just to see where it brings me. And believe it or not, at this funky angle is absolutely perfect to fit in the slot of the bumper, and I'll show you that in a minute. But in the meantime, let's get this guy nice and hot. Remember, it is aluminum, so you do want to make sure that you heat it up to a pliable point. You just don't want to grab these things and force them down, even though it's very pliable. You will there is a probability of cracking these, so I'll take a chance. Just heat them up. Doesn't take much. I've already started this prior to the video, so it'll take me even less time to do this. So just go nice and gentle. There we go. There's that tab we're talking about. Up here, now it's hard to see, but there is a gap in there. All right, and you can fit the first ear, this one, and note your two inlet and outlet pipes on this side here. And if you remember, I said to do the angle of the tabs, and you'll see why in just a minute. They'll fit right in there. So we're going to position the left part, or the passenger's side, with the two inlets first. That's the one with the funny angle I mentioned before. And the reason for that is right here. There's a lip. I'll show you that in a second. The ear has to fit right in between the little slot, right in there, and then go underneath or go over this lip. So start with this side first. There you go. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll show you exactly what I was talking about here. Let me get you off the stand. So if we come here, See if I can get a better light. There we go. So there's the ear, right? The ear starts right there and it goes, and if you can see, there's a tab, part of the bump right here, and then your ear comes down here, and right here is a lip. So that's the reason for this little angle that we did on the bench. Now let's go take a look on the driver's side. Driver's side, you can't put it in this one. Reason is it is spread out too far. So this one, all we're going to do is just, I'll show you where to position this after, but all you're going to do is put in a couple of self-tapping screws in here as well. You can put one or two depending on your preferences, and also on the side put a couple of good beefy self-tapping screws. You don't want this to be coming loose. The position, get this guy out of the way a little bit there, I'll lift it up, there we go. Okay, so what you want to do is try to get it to come against here, the bottom portion of the heat exchanger, and it'll sit slightly against this here. But the more you push it against this rear tab, the more you'll be able to fit your the air dam. A lot of you mentioned that you're trying to figure out how to reinstall the air dam that is part of the plastic bumper. Well, if you do it this way here, it'll give you just about, it's about 5.5 inches or so from the front to the very tip right here, and that equals just about the same distance as your stock unit width. And if you remember, the stock unit, the air dam came right down here, you clipped it onto these parts here. Well, that'll be your best bet if you use this distance. Now, once you have chosen to go this route, the next step, as I mentioned, is make sure that everything is good and secure and everything is tight and everything is butted up against the back. Will be simply to reinstall your hoses and refill the entire unit and put your bumper back on. So we'll take that one step at a time here. For those of you who do not want to go this route, bending and screwing in there or fiddling with this, what you can do is go to your local welding shop or metal supply store, and I had some scrap. I got a couple of feet of this here, scrap aluminum straps, and what you could always do is just position these on top, weld it to the heat exchanger itself, and then just come in, and then you could tap them on. Oops, where is it? There we go. And then you could just tap those guys on right to the bumper here as well also, or better yet, underneath here where there's no lip. So that is another option for you. I'll show you that on the bench. Option B is the option I'm going to add to mine here, and that is weld a couple of metal tabs right in the middle. Not in the middle, but about 7 inches away. And the reason I said 7 inches away is, if you remember, you've got those little tabs that the ears, or that ear, fits in. And if you remember what those were, they will be positioned on this side. It will be positioned right about here. So make sure that you weld away. So 7 inches away from there, and you're away from your little ear. Reminder, this guy, okay? You want to be away from this one, as well as this is the one that the ear went into previously. So measure away 7 inches and you won't have any issues. There we go. So you can either, as I said, you can either MIG weld with this, if you know how to MIG weld aluminum. It's a little bit tricky, or if you prefer, you can always go out and buy these welding rods. They're aluminum welding rods, and basically you use it just as a brazing rod, just with a regular can of propane and a torch. I highly recommend not use a propane and to actually use the MAP one. The MAP one burns at a much higher temperature and a lot faster, so it's I find that much more pleasant to work with. So you would position them here, reach your required temperature, and just braze rod these into the into its location on both sides. You can also bring it up front a little bit and do a little bit of back welding as well. After that, you have enough lip here to be able to put in a couple of good heavy self-tapping screws on both sides. So you'd have one there and you would have one right here. Nothing wrong with this system here. It's just a different option, different way for you to go. Back at the car, I've installed it, doing a dry test to see how everything fits. Everything fits nicely. Let's come down underneath here. So here are the two tabs I mentioned I would weld on mine as option B, and ended up quite sturdy, quite strong. And I've also kept the original ears that came with the kit itself when you buy it. So just to give you a quick look, there's the two tabs. I gave it a quite nice little angle on it. Just pop it in the back as I mentioned. What I'm doing is I'm just holding it here with a pair of vice grips to clamp it down. And make sure, once again, make sure you bring this all the way to the back. And that should give you enough of the clearance that's required to put back your air dam. So as you can see, what has happened here is I've drilled a couple of holes right there and right there. I'm going to fit a 3/8 inch bolt right through from the bottom, and I am going to mate it to underneath the bumper to where I have drilled and cleaned up my hole. Let's see if we can get in there. There we go. I've drilled and cleaned up my hole. I'm going to put the nut right in there, and I'm going to weld it to the bumper itself, one there and one here as well. Because you're dealing with two different metals here, you got steel on the bumper and you got aluminum down here on your heat exchanger, I highly suggest get a couple of little rubber washers just as spacers so that the two metals don't really touch each other. Aluminum and steel don't necessarily get along, and one will cause a chemical reaction to where the other one will tend to rust. So just to slow down the process or even stop the process, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put one on top here, one at the bottom there, snug everything all up, and they shouldn't be really, if there is contact, it's going to be very, very minimum at this point here. One of the things I had to do is, sorry for the shakiness, guys, I got to hold this, but on this corner here, see this lip? What I did is I grabbed a ball peen and a hammer, two of them, and I just pounded this guy backwards. I put the ball peen round part in here, and I just hit the hammer face to face there. Move this about, an eighth of an inch. It was hitting the bottom of the heat exchanger on this side here, and I did not want to have any type of rubbing, because obviously vibration will cut through the aluminum, as aluminum is a very soft material. Next is, I've noticed that the hose that comes out of my pump is getting brittle, and it's not the right size. Somebody squeezed the bejeebies out of that one, and it ended up expanding it twice the size. So I've got some 3/4 inch pipe, and I'm going to install that. That fits perfectly in. Just a little bit of stretching, not much to do. And I'll be able to get this much more easily attached to the bottom also as well, instead of struggling with this old one. But as I said, this one here is brittle, so might as well change it now, just as preventive care. Don't forget your Loctite. I'm using the medium straight, which is good enough. It's actually, there we go. as I mentioned before, it's easier to start off with this ear on this side at a bent, as I had mentioned previously, and fit it all up at the back. Make sure that you get it nice and snug. I'm just gonna attach that to that one. This is good. Double check all your fittings. As you can see, I've got my bolt passed right through the ears that I welded on. These guys here, all I'm going to do is that's the original ears. All I'm going to do is just drill, put a nice big beefy self-tapping screw from there to there. I could also put a nut and bolt combination through there. That's fine. That'll work there. On this side, you can probably do the same thing. Put a nut and bolt combination as well right there. Once you have that, reconnect your hoses and move on to the next step. All right, so just noticed something. The upper hose, which is this one. Remember, the lower hose comes from the pump itself. Make sure you put your lockdowns onto the nipples. But for the upper one, what I notice here is no matter how hard you try to get it to attach, first off, it's just a little bit short because the other system used to come out further. Okay, the original heat exchanger used to come out further here, so it was a lot easier for it to attach. If you try to attach it from here, what you're going to notice is you're going to be pinching it right here, okay, like that. So what I suggest is move that hose back, grab it from here. That's where it is, okay? It's attached to this hose, so it's the lower one. Grab it, pull it out. Now you're going to notice that it's got, there we go. See this here? This just attaches the lower hose to the upper hose. So move this forward. Give yourself some slack. There we go. And by going on the upper, as long as you're not touching the oh god, I lost the name. The hold down, the clamp, you'll be able to come in here quite easily, and you see now you have lots of room. It's not going to pinch anywhere, and it's not touching the steel bracket there. Now what you can do, and if you notice, it's not even going to touch this guy here. So that's what I suggest. And you can even, by twisting this guy around, you see, you can twist this guy around as much as you want. You can adjust the height of what you want here. So install it first, make sure you put your clamps on, and then you can come back here and readjust as required. If you see it's going to be rubbing against any metal parts, get yourself either wire loom or a bigger piece of hose and just pass it over on this one here. It'll be a sacrificial piece, but just make sure it's not rubbing against your metal, nor is it rubbing against any of the sharp points of your clamp. If it is, move your clamp either which way so that it's not touching. One little tip I strongly suggest is put some masking tape on your two corners. The reason for that is you're going to be removing and reinstalling this bumper a few times till you get the proper fit, unless if you're lucky enough and you followed the suggestion here and you got it right the first time. I congratulate you on that. But what I did is I also took a couple of straps like this here so to hold the bumper up nice and snug while I'm doing my test fit. For the brackets to hold down the air dam, I'm going to show you two systems. Probably the easiest, cheapest to do is one is get yourself some strapping metal just like here, and they're already pre-drilled, but they're very, very solid. And it comes in long lengths. They're about 2 feet long, all straight obviously, and they just bend them like this, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to position it, okay, for example, up against there, okay, and underneath there. So the L part fits underneath, smaller part fits there. You can do a self-tapping screw right up there. Let's see if I can do the one. So self-tap one screw there, and then you can put in a couple of screws, nuts and bolts through here, and then come underneath and do the same thing here. Let's see if we can see that. Yeah, we can. Okay, so put in a couple more bolts underneath here, nuts and bolts, and that will hold the entire unit up against the bumper frame. What I did is I went to option B. Bought some 1/4 inch threaded rods. They come in exactly 2 foot long sections. Bought a whole pile of 1/4 inch nuts as well as washers and these little steel brackets. Well, there we go. Sorry, these steel brackets that are already pre-drilled, which is quite handy. And I use that as the proper spacers. And what I did is I drilled 2 holes above here, one there and one there, and I welded 2 1/4 inch nuts. So I positioned the whole entire thing, and I just threaded it right into the bumper, the steel portion of the bumper. Now all underneath as well, you can see right there, everything is very secure, everything is very tight. Use some Loctite on these guys. So you don't want this backing up on you while you're driving. Now, that's that. The issue with installing the bumper. Well, here's the problem. The bumper fits in and it sticks out, and your 2 bolts, if we take a look at them, this guy, that's the back of the bumper right here, and this guy, okay, they're on the bumper and they won't reach to the back. So you can't put your nut back here. The reason is the heat exchanger that you've installed, the new Eurocharge heat exchanger, it's much wider than the stock one. We all know that. The problem is the air dam sticks out further than before, and there's a couple of blockages. You got one lip here, you got this lip here, this one here, and this here. So you need to address a couple of things. First off, you're going to need to shave off about, well, you'll see this falls into like a step. Okay, so I took off about 3/4 of an inch off of this one all around. Just cut it all evenly. I shaved this portion back also. This stuck out a lot more. This one I need to shave back to about there. Okay, so I'm going to take off that knob even with here. Then this little lip, this is where your bumper slides right into this little groove like that. And the problem is there's not enough space. So I just grabbed the grinding wheel and I just grounded off an extra 1/2 an inch, 3/4 of an inch. So now the bumper will slide right in there much further back, and it will position itself better. When you do try this out, the reason you have to shave this guy is when you come to reinstall your front grille, okay, the lower grille, it's going to get, well, it's supposed to go like this, but anyway, it's going to jam up against these tabs now on both sides. So you don't want to be cutting in here to adjust, so just trim these guys off, back off a couple of, like I said, about 1/2 an inch. You should be fine. Side note, this one here, remember that's the original ear tab that came with the heat exchanger. And I said, go ahead and you can pop rivet, not pop rivet, but you can, well, you could pop rivet. That's another suggestion there. But you can use a nut and bolt combination, or you can use a self-tapping screw. What I've noticed though is that goes right on top here, and you just won't have enough room. You would have to start making cuts into here. That's where your tie down bolt is for the bumper. So ixnay on that suggestion. What you'll need to do is come back here and do it further back. Okay, What I would even suggest is just trim this guy back, make it flush, and then put your self-tapping screws in the back there. So perfect. Now you can see that this is the passenger side bolt from the bumper going to that hole that we talked about that is attached to the steel bumper that we need to add the nut behind it. That is a perfect fit. And if you take a look at the driver's side, that is also a perfect fit. Okay, so you've reinstalled your front bumper. Everything aligns up, all your bolts are on. Next step is you want to burp your system, and the fastest way of doing it is if you take a look at the top hose right here. Okay, you want to pinch this one just to the left of your return line. What that's going to do is by pinching this one, it's going to send your fluids and air bubbles all through here and back into your tank. And at the tank, at the bottom, your hose, it will go back down and recirculate, and it'll get rid of all of your air. So again, use your specialty clamps on this one here. If you didn't get a pair, I highly suggest you get one. They are very handy. And just clamp it right about there. As you can see, it's this one here. Okay, that's the one you want to clamp. Turn your engine on for, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Let it circulate. Better yet, take it out for a spin. Just make sure that you tape this to something secure with electrical tape, or that you put it with tie wraps or something like that, because you'll be driving along and this will be vibrating. You don't want this hitting or touching your belt here at all. So you may even want to consider changing location, coming down a little bit more, like right about there. That's pretty secure. See the distance away here, okay? But please secure it. You can even secure it to this. You can even secure it to your cold air return. This is the this is not the stock cold air return, but you can hook it onto your stock air return as well. But just make sure you clamp this and you secure this somewhere. Go out for a drive, 10-15 minutes, come back, release this here, and your system should be all burped. So once you have everything all buttoned up, all that's left to do is do the reverse process to your bumper. I'm not going to show you that part because you already know how to remove it, so therefore the reinstallation is exactly the reverse process. Just remember to install your outdoor thermostat sensor, your fog lamps. Make sure on both sides. There's only one thermostat sensor, by the way, for the outside. There's your other one. Make sure everything is all clamped down. And when you're reinstalling your fluids, if you need some new one, that's one I suggest, BQ 103-0004, which is an MB specific for, it's MB 325.0 is what the spec is on this, and that's what is required on the this engine. So there you go. Go have a nice drive, enjoy yourself, and see how your new temperatures are showing. I'm curious to see what kind of numbers mine will be showing as well. If you like, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and we'll be creating some more.